Hey, Margie here. Did you ever feel like you just had to have that piece of cake, that cookie, something sweet? Well, sugar is a real problem for so many of us. And the issue is that it's very detrimental to our bones and overall health. And this is the topic we're delving into today with our very special guest, Michael Collins. And Michael believes that sugar addiction is very real and should not be taken lightly. As a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder for over 35 years, he took a very keen interest in what sugar was doing to him and his friends in early recovery. After much research and experimentation, he quit sugar with the help of amazing mentors. He then raised two children sugar-free from the womb to 6 years old. As they grew, he rewrote the rules for sugar and kids in childhood. He takes very seriously his stewardship of sugaraddiction.com and aims to provide information and community for anyone wanting to curb or quit sugar. After a successful business career online selling software and information, he decided that what really made him happy was helping people with their addictions. He has written a book on sugar detox and addiction and developed an intensive online 30-day sugar freedom challenge. A firm believer in community support to help with any issue, he has included membership in his private recovery forum with the challenge. Mike is the founder of both sugaraddiction.com and the Quick Sugar Summit. His book, The Last Resort Sugar Detox, has been read by hundreds of thousands of people, and his online 30-day challenge, Sugar Freedom Challenge, has been successfully completed by thousands. And today we're delving into the topic of sugar and addiction and what we can do. Filled with lots of great information, so stay tuned. Welcome, Mike. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. This topic is so important for everybody who's listening. It's something that affects me personally because I consider myself an ex-sugar addict. But I think for all the people listening who have any issues with their bones, this is just absolutely crucial, as well as all, overall health. So thank you and welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm honored. It's a pleasure to do this.
So before we get started, I just want to fill everyone in on why why sugar is so incredibly, is really an anti-nutrient when it comes to your bones. It does a few things. It reduces the absorption of both calcium and magnesium. Studies have shown that actually the excretion increases in the urine of both calcium and magnesium with sugar. It also, it's unbelievable. It also increases cortisol, which has been shown, our stress hormone, which actually reduces the activity of the osteoblasts, which are the bone building cells. And so there's just so many reasons why it affects our bones. And they've even done studies with animals showing that when they gave these animals sugar, that they were done with rats, it actually reduced the strength of their bones and they were more likely to fracture. So it's just not a win-win. It's just something we want to avoid. But you're here to really help us with this because I don't know that everybody realizes that sugar is truly addictive. So why don't you tell us, because this is what you've been doing for such a long time and you're such an expert on this, about sugar being addictive?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I don't think the information is out there. I come from an addictive background and recovery from alcohol and drugs for 35 years, 36 almost. And so the pattern that I use sugar in, and then the people that I coach use sugar in, it became very obvious to me. If you look at the definition of addiction, sugar is there. I mean, it has every single trait that regular addiction has. And I always tell people that if you could just spend 5 minutes in my inbox, 5 minutes on my instant messenger, where people are 200 and 300 pounds overweight, losing limbs, going blind, getting diabetes diagnoses, and still their doctor says you will be dead in a couple of years if you do not stop using sugar, and they still cannot. And that's the definition in my world of addiction. They have a biochemical addiction to this product. Now, one of the things that's hard to understand, really difficult to understand, and that is that, Over 300 years, we've enculturated sugar into our diet. We can give this product to a 1-year-old, to a baby, and have no problems with it. So there's a stigma that exists in calling it an addiction. People think about a guy under a bridge with a brown paper bottle. They don't think about the possibility that they could be addicted to this product. But, you know, I don't know if you talked in the introduction about it. I used to be the chairman. I'm still on the board of the Food Addiction Institute, right? Now, this group, people think of it as fringe a little bit. Even the eating disorder folks think of it as fringe, but their goal is to name sugar as a substance use disorder. Now, look, we take a little bit of heroin, we take a little bit of alcohol, we take a little bit of marijuana, whatever, but we are pounding 20 teaspoons on average. That's every man, woman, and child in the United States. And if you have a big habit, you might be doing 30 or 40 teaspoons of sugar every single day. That's before the flour. So, and the part that's really exploded in the last 5 years is the brain science around the nature of fructose, the other half of the sugar molecule, fructose and glucose, the other half of the molecule, the fructose, affecting the nucleus accumbens, the brain reward chemicals, right? Serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, GABA, even the adrenals and even your adrenal glands are affected, right? And so people this new science, if you will, this new information is really brand new that people don't understand it. And we understand the glucose part. We understand the diabetes part. We understand even probably the bone health stuff. But what they do not understand is why, when they just say one day, I would like to stop, and then they can't. Like, they continue this process of, I'd like to stop, but I can't. I'd like to stop, but they keep being drawn back to it. So I personally, in all my heart, believe that it is a substance use disorder, very powerful psychoactive, but it is not named in what's called the DSM-5 or the World Health 10. So it is not an actual diagnosis of addiction, right? So this is where we are. We're at the Food Addiction Institute. We're trying to get it into those books. So like I said, it's not a diagnosis yet, but other things like binge eating just got introduced in a couple of years back. It takes time as the science evolves to get it into the books so that it is a true, and really, when you say a true addiction, it's something that a doctor could bill for, right? But we know, after working with thousands of addicts and sugar addicts and having them detox and get off it, that it truly is addictive.
So let's talk about a couple of things, because you have so much experience. So I think it'd be interesting for everyone to hear what conditions you've worked with that have improved from people getting off the sugar. So I really believe it is miraculous.
You know, I have to clarify, and you probably have to too. I don't know, but I do, you know, because I've been doing this so long. I've got a lot of strange letters from different agencies, because these are all anecdotal, but these are all very real. And I have these files. I have, you know, these testimonials of people who have, you know, forget about the weight loss. That's like normal. But we've had people get off their diabetes meds, have rheumatoid arthritis go into 100% remission. We've had people literally say that they are no longer diabetic. That's 2 now, not 1, not diabetes 1, it's diabetes 2. They've cured it. And the anecdotal things are the brain fog clears up, the skin clears up. I think the most important one for folks on your audience is the arthritis in the hands. People talk hands and knees, okay? And even though, I mean, we do have quite a few people who have been, by a doctor, said that they are in remission from rheumatoid arthritis. So that's a very common one. But even the average person who's never even thought about having arthritis, their hands stop aching, their knees stop aching. It's, you know, it is truly miraculous. I mean, it really is. And fatty liver reduction, and, you know, it kind of still curious on how, but by the markers that are chemical, not the one where you put a needle in you, their markers got a lot better for fatty liver too.
Yeah, I mean, my own personal story was I changed my diet, I guess it was around 10 years ago, when I became a health coach because I started only as a physical therapist.
Mm.
And I decided to clean it up. But one of the biggest things was sugar, because I was consuming a lot of sugar. Even though my diet was healthy, I was
Mhm.
consuming a lot of sugar. And my husband likes to bake, and I would sort of take the chocolate chips and I could eat almost a whole bag. And then every day at
Mm.
3 o'clock, I would pass out. I get the high and the low. And what really wasn't, I mean, to me, it was addiction. I had to have it. But what happened when I did stop was that I have Hashimoto's and I was on medication for that.
Mm.
And guess what? I was able to get off all medication. And I've been off medication for, I guess, around 10 years as well. So it's really
I
been,
hear that a lot. Lupus, total remission. I got Hashimoto's, total remission. What else? A bunch of autoimmune stuff totally goes away for sure.
it's just such an inflammatory food. And it's so hard for people to believe because it tastes so good. And I
Mm.
think it's interesting that you said the amount that we're eating right now. Well, how does that compare to what our ancestors did way back? How
Right.
does that compare?
Oh, it's not even a comparison. I mean, the dose makes the poison, right? It's like, that's why I said you only take a little bit of the other stuff and you get the high that you're looking for or whatever. And people don't think of it as a high, you know? I mean, the numbers, I think, in England, and I always talk about the history. I love the history of this all. So we started, they started in England in the late 1600s, 1700s. They would go to Africa, pick up the slaves. Then they would go to South America and the Caribbean and Americas and pick up the sugar, the whiskey, the rum, and the tea, right? And come back. And during that time period, I think from like late 1700 to 1800, went from 5 pounds a year to 100 pounds in a year, in a 100-year period. Now it's up to 150 pounds average per person in the United States. I mean, think about 150 pounds, right? It's like how many of those bags? So there's 15. So it's 30 of those bags that you buy the sugar in. 30 of those bags are passing through your system every single year, right? And look, you talk about the history, I always believe that we can't figure out how to get out of this till we figure out how we got in it. Okay. And we got in it through just a simple evolutionary process that went awry. Okay. Which is processed food is definitely an experiment that has failed. We're supposed to eat whole food. We evolved millions of years to eat whole food, and the body just can't push that much powder through it, let alone ones that have these effects, these inflammatory effects and the effects now that we know very clearly on the brain and the brain chemical reward system. So yeah, it's tough.
Wow. Yeah, it used to be a little berries, right? When people were a little berries.
Once or twice a year. And if you wanted to risk getting stung by a bee, you got a little honey. That was it. Fruit is hybridized for fructose. They used to be just little crab apples or bananas with hardly any fruit in them. I mean, yeah.
So what have you seen since COVID and so many people are home and comfort food is on the rise? Have you seen a big increase in sugar consumption?
Well, it's not me. The Candy Association is proven and writes it up that candy is up, chocolate is up, all kinds of baking goods. People don't realize that, people that aren't paying attention, that not only was toilet paper out, so was flour and sugar, because people were baking at home. But there is proven statistics that all of those things, all those comfort type foods were up during the pandemic and still are up.
So I think what everybody wants to hear, because you are such an expert at this, is okay, so people have this problem and they're addicted. Maybe they don't even know they're addicted, but what have you found works? How do people quit? So if you could fill us in and give us some tips as we start 2021, this is going to be so helpful because, as you said, so many things get better. I mean, this is just, anything you say is such a win-win because sugar is just so very, very inflammatory. And I've seen that in my practice for years. And so, yes, so give us the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one of the beauties of doing, thousands of detoxes is patterns develop, right? And what is genius but pattern recognition, right? You get to see over and over and over the same thing happening, right? And the pattern goes similar to this. Like the first day is a grace day. It's weird, but you don't feel that bad. Some people do, but most people don't. Starting in day 2 and then going through about, depending on how big your habit was, you're in kind of a rough shape. You have lethargy, you're hungry all the time, you're hangry, you're angry, you're irritable, you maybe need to sleep all the time. So there's true physical withdrawals. You're a little bit depressed as well. And so what you have to do is you have to realize that there's a lot of people and a lot of science that help people get past that first part of it, right? And know that you're going to pass through this time period. Just, hydrate well, sleep well, eat whole food, and have some time that isn't, going to cause a lot of stress. And so once you get to the other side of that, which is 10 to 14 days, some in that range, it gets a little bit more mental. It's not the cravings, the physical cravings go away. One of the beauties of a sugar detox is that once people who are, have biochemical issues with ingesting this product, those folks, the cravings lessen quite a bit, almost to nothing. And then you think about it, but you're not physically like trying to get it, right? And then it goes on, days 14 through 30, you kind of feel really good. It's like, we call it a pink cloud, right? And you think, oh, I can have a little bit of something. And that's where people get into trouble, right? They start to like, oh, I'll just have a little. Some people, I always get this question. So they always ask, do I have to do this for the rest of my life? And it's so like, the answer is maybe you do. And it's hard. There's literally a grieving period. This is like losing a lover. This has been since we were children, since probably in the womb, our mother has comforted us with a food product, right? They said, give you a cookie when you're crying instead of getting down and giving you a hug. And so we literally learned worry, sugar, stress, sugar, afraid, sugar, scared, sugar. And so it becomes and has become an emotional management tool, right? And until you understand that that's the case, it has nothing to do with the food, very little or nothing to do with the food. We all know we need to eliminate the blatant sugar in the candies, cookies, and ice creams, but we don't know that 80% of the food products in this grocery store have sugar in it. So there becomes an eternal vigilance necessary to keep this up. But once someone actually does maintain an abstinence for 30, 60, or 90 days, there's so many changes physically, like you talk about the hands and the knees, the skin clearing up, weight loss is very difficult to hide, the brain fog clears up. Almost no one wants to go back. Now, they struggle because of the societal part. They don't really struggle because of the fit. Well, they do until they get to about day 60. With the physical part, it's like trying to be, you're so different. In this society, you become so different if you're someone who doesn't have sugar. And there's a lot of sugar pushers too. People that are like, they don't want to look at their own sugar. So, and then, they baked a cake for you or they want to buy you something. You have to join a new tribe is what you have to do. You have to join a different group of people who are thinking about health and think sugar might not be a good thing for them.
So interesting, because I'm sitting here because I can relate to every word you're saying, only because I really don't have sugar in my life. And because I saw the amazing change I've never had more energy or felt better. And
Right.
so, and I know if I were to go back and start having, any of that I revert. And it's happened a few times where it's been a holiday and you had some, and then I was just dragging for, I've learned that the next day I can't have anything, not even anything. And then
Yeah.
I'm usually okay. For me, that works. But it's so interesting because society does, oh, come on, join us in dessert, or people push it all the time. So that's so very interesting. And so I have a couple questions though, because I get asked these questions all the time.
Yeah,
So I'm going to
sure.
ask you a couple things. As an interim step, or just tell us about your thoughts on, there's a couple of them. Honey, the natural sweeteners, the honey, the maple syrup, versus the actual white sugar. So let's start with that. What's your thought on like honey and maple syrup?
The science today proves that very clearly that the offending molecule mentally and in the addiction world, and a lot now in the physical world, because fructose is the offending molecule. Fructose cannot be processed anywhere but the liver. And we have children with fatty liver disease. We have an epidemic of 4, 5, 6-year-olds. This is an alcoholic's disease because of so much sugar. And the fructose that is in honey, the fructose that is in maple syrup, in agave syrup, right? Agave syrup is like 75% fructose.
I know,
okay?
Isn't that, because that's another question. I always say, no agave. People, it's at the health food store. People have no idea that what agave is. Yes, exactly.
They make tequila out of it. It's very similar to high fructose corn syrup, right? The obesity numbers track identically from the 80s to now from the high fructose corn syrup in the diet, right? And the reductionism of, splitting the molecule in half of sugar and understanding that the fructose is the reason you can't quit. The glucose is going to wreck your body, but the fructose is what you're affecting your nucleus accumbens. I personally believe, and a couple of people big time educators that I've interviewed on different summits we've had, those folks, I asked them point blank, is fructose a psychoactive drug? And when you think about something that's been reduced to a powder, there's no minerals, there's no vitamins, there's nothing left but the white powdered drug. And now that the science says, look, we have people, I don't know if you know about this book right here. This is an amazing book where they talk about salt, fat, and sugar, where they talk about the food products, right, in the diet. There's scientists on the other side using MRI machines, watching our brain light up, just like they do when they do cocaine or alcohol. The same functions in the brain light up with sugar. They're sliding people into MRIs and they're having them eat the stuff to see how it lights the brain up. To think that we are like just, well, we're eating a little sugar, it's just not the case. There are addiction scientists on the other side, food scientists on the other side, trying to get you to use as much of their product as you possibly can. And in the 80s, when the litigation was happening with the tobacco companies, they saw the writing on the wall. They started buying up food companies. So we have this entire industrial complex trying to get more sugar into us because of this addictive nature. And it just makes me sad for the kids mostly, and it's not so much the adults. We have a choice, but the kids, right from the baby formulas forward, are being trained to think of we don't realize that when we ingest this, there is a little bit of calm. There's a little bit of lift in self-esteem. There's just a little squirt of dopamine, a little squirt of serotonin, a little, you know what I mean? And so we're getting these reward systems, these rewards for eating this product. We don't have to go for a walk. We don't have to go for a run. We don't have to get a hug. We don't have to eat new food, watch a sunset, get a massage. We don't have to do any other self-care that would normally produce dopamine, that we evolved to get dopamine. We only have to reach for sugar. And that's just a pattern that needs to be interrupted. Just like, be aware that this is happening. You're not looking for a sweet treat. I'm going to repeat it. You're looking for a squirt of dopamine. So
I love that.
That's a hard message for folks to. So I'm so happy that you're having me on, simply because we don't have a tagline over here that says meat is murder or friends don't let friends drive drunk, right? It takes about 30, 40, 50 minutes of a setup so people kind of understand all the parts of it. Now they know disparate parts of it, but they don't know necessarily about the brain reward stuff and all this other stuff. So anyway, I get on my soapbox sometimes.
No, I love this. It's so interesting because I teach a whole happiness program, and I so could not agree with you more that food is not the way, sugar is not the way to reward someone. There's so many others. So I love all of those. Is that part of your program where you teach people other rewards?
Oh, we have to. It's a actually core part of it, a literal core part of it. And we got a guy on the summit. He's a doctor, he's a dentist in the UK, started a thing called the Rewards Project, which is we have to change how we reward children. We cannot persist in rewarding them scholastically, athletically, hell, for washing the dishes or making their bed with sugar products. It's ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's just training them for lifelong deadly habits, and that are very, as we know as adults, hard to break.
No, it's so true. And it's interesting because you sort of just have to be, and this is even before I was a health coach, you know, I was there like one of the soccer mom and hockey mom bringing a healthy snack, you know, because usually people bring donuts and they bring, you know, the worst of the worst with the Gatorade and the sodas and everything. And so, you know, you just have to do it. But the kids didn't mind. That's the funny thing. They were, but you're right. You have to start early on, but the rewards are so worth it. It's just incredible. And I don't think people realize, like you said, I truly don't think people realize the negative health consequences of sugar, this terribly addictive drug.
We are about, you know, some of my mentors say about 8 years into a 30-year tectonic shift, basically, you know, seatbelts in cars, drinking and driving, you know, when the science says that you need to, you know, seatbelts save lives, you know, cigarettes might kill you, or, you know, things that where science changed, and when we discovered it and we were aware, then we could no longer ignore it. And that's happening with folks like you and myself, but it's going to take some time. But here's the thing. Most people don't have the time for this societal shift. It's a 20-year deal, or 30 maybe. You know, it's going to take time. Pretty soon, 200 years, 100 years from now, they're going to say, you know, they used to give sugar to kids, right? It's going to not be legal. You know, I'm telling you, it's not going to be legal. It's going to be an adult treat. It'll never be illegal, but it's going to be an adult treat. And, you know, we don't have 20 years because this is a very slow poison, a very slow suicide to keep doing it. It doesn't really manifest itself for 20 or 30 years in whatever the maladies we just discussed, you know?
So tell us, you've done something so amazing with this summit. I'm so excited about it because the speakers are amazing. Why don't you just tell us why you put it together and just fill us in, because I think it's something that's going to be, it just sounds incredible. I was looking through the speakers and really people that can make a huge difference in your life. So fill us in.
Yeah, no, the summit has been a labor of love. Started 5 years ago. This is our 6th year. And in the early days, I just wanted to talk to all these guys. And I figured, I might as well record it too. And so I've interviewed over 200 people from every university that you can think of, Harvard, Cornell, UC Davis. I mean, every university, you know, it just exploded after about year 4 or 5. And this year we have Robert Lustig, who's literally probably the de facto leader in all this sugar reduction stuff with his books. And we have Gary Taubes, whose book, The Case for Keto and the Case Against Sugar and Why We Get Fat, and in New York Times, both New York Times bestseller. And these guys are the thought leaders, if you will, in what we've been talking about, you know, raising the awareness for the public out there. And it's a great addition, if you will. We have Judy Collins, who's the famous singer who, you know, when the clowns come in or whatever. I mean, she's got some really iconic songs that you've heard, right? She's Grammy nominated. But here's the thing, you know, she's recovering alcoholic, but 20 years ago, she realized that she had substituted food for alcohol, right? And so she wrote a book called Cravings, and she's really excited to get that. She's 80 something years old, still tours, and she wants to have this part of her legacy. Yes, she has a great body of songs, but she wants this to get out and have people know about it. And I could go on and on. They can just go to, you know, you got probably a link somewhere they can go.
Yeah, we'll have a link in the show notes. And wait, here's the thing. So I didn't know about this. We just recently connected. And when I found out that this is starting, so this podcast, it's starting today. So the summit's going to be the day the podcast is released. So go to this link. And it's free. People don't have to pay to attend. And
that's free.
So there's just, if you have any issues with sugar, this is going to be, it's really monumental because you have so many experts in the field who really can give solutions and really give great information. So
Yeah, there's 60 people now. We got a little carried away this year. We got a little carried away. So it's 7 straight days of 8 or 9 speakers every single day, totally free. And it's, I mean, the Dr. Lustigs and Gary Taubes, and they're the famous ones, but there's so many new people and so much new science about amino acids, continuous glucose monitors, anything you can think of. There's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of science on why it's bad, but there's also a lot of coaches on how to change, right? And we like to get all that information out there. And it's really exciting because to see it have grown over the last 5 years has really been something.
I'm so excited. I don't know how. I guess there's so many things out there. I can't believe I didn't know about this until we recently met. So I'm
well, here I'm hereby extending an invitation up to you to speak on it next year, because look, the bone health thing I'm very curious about. Now, I heard on one of the speakers say this, it takes, you said something earlier, it takes 6 molecules or something, 8 molecules of magnesium to process 1 molecule of sugar. So you're pulling all of this magnesium out of your body, right?
Right. All the nutrients, you're really depleting nutrients, which is so critical for our bone health.
Yeah, so I mean, folks need to know this. I mean, I try and get, like I say, we call it, there's no more than one way to the top of a mountain, you know. I came from a world of late stage food addicts. These folks, 200 and 300 pounds overweight, going blind, you know, they needed a lot of support, a lot of help, a lot of therapy, a lot of different stuff. But my goal now is to broaden the awareness of people there's a lot of different paths to the top of the mountain. There's a lot of ways. Some people can moderate. Some people cannot. Some people can quit for a year and then maybe have a little treat once in a while. Everybody's different. And we just give you a little smorgasbord of people that they can choose, see who they resonate with, see who they like, and then, you know, pick a person and pick a modality, if you will, a method of quitting or reducing or cutting back.
I love this because it is such an issue. It's not something that's a small thing. It's something that's really a tremendous thing.
I mean, when it's so funny, because I'm glad you're saying that, because when you're in it like me, it's so no brainer, as the kids say. I mean, I hear it day in and day out interviewing speakers and whatever, but I've found that the average person does not know that mac and cheese is not a food group. that like, you know, that they believe somehow that there is a way to eat healthfully from a bag, a box, a can, cellophane, you know, takeout, fast food. They believe that they can sustain life over a long period of time without all these maladies. And it's just not true. It just doesn't happen that way. You have to go back to whole foods of some sort and realize that processed foods, or foods that are made of food, we call them drug foods, those things should only be eaten in moderation, truly. You know, they're not something that should be your whole diet.
Oh, absolutely. But the good news for everybody listening, because I'm the eternal optimist, and the good news is, though, when you reduce the sugar, when you make that switch, so I don't believe in suffering, or I don't believe in depriving. I just believe in substitution. You can substitute delicious, unbelievable food. And the best news is your taste buds change. So you no longer crave that. Like, I couldn't even want right now a chocolate sundae. For me, a few blueberries makes me thrilled. It just, your taste buds no longer crave that when you're not in that whole sugar system. It's amazing.
That is so true. So true. We talked about before we went on the air, the sugar substitutes, right? After the honey.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We didn't get there. Yeah, so let's talk about what we know, but let's just tell everyone, let's talk about the real unhealthy ones. Yeah. Let's talk about the real first. Let's go from the sweet and low. These all have very negative effects on the bones. So let's go from the sweet and low to the three of them that really have issues. The
Look, to my
Splenda.
world, all that crap is just a chemical experiment gone bad. But let me tell you from the addictive side what happens, okay? What happens in any of the monk fruit, stevia, it doesn't matter what. You have trained your brain like Pavlov's dogs in that neural pathway that when you get sweet, you are craving more, you are wanting more sweet, right? And so, and this stuff is all mixed together, right? So people don't like my old time drug analogies, but it's like, look, you're drinking beer, you're looking for whiskey, you're drinking whiskey, you're looking for cocaine, you're looking to elevate, right? And so when you eat the monk fruit and you eat the stevia and you eat the all of the pink and yellow kind of envelope things, your body's neural pathways are lit back up again. This is proven, it lits back up. And now you're looking for the high test, the real sugar. And so it keeps you stuck in cravings. It keeps you stuck in the world of staying on the sugar. And you nailed it 100% right on the head in that after 60, 90 days of no sugar, a carrot tastes sweet. A blueberry, a macadamia nut will make you crazy. It tastes like a piece of candy, and the other stuff is too syrupy sweet. You don't like it. It's not good for you. You feel like, and that's what they do in the Bliss Point in that book. They're trying to find that place. The food scientists are trying to find this place where you're, the perfect point of where the sweetness should be, right? So, but when you readjust your taste buds and you readjust your diet, normal, healthy whole foods taste wonderful. They really do. And even stuff that's not supposed to be sweet, the broccoli and Brussels sprouts and things that there's a sweetness to them.
No, it's so true. But as an intermediate step, so the person who's living on white sugar and they're living on cake and they're living, for breakfast they have bagels and they're living on, so that person for an intermediate step is the stevia, the monk fruit. Is that a way to go, or you find it's better to just go cold turkey?
I have different programs for people that, depending on how they struggle, right? I go caffeine first, sugar second, flour third. That's a different type of step down, right? But my methadone, my Suboxone, my middle one that you're talking about is probably more grains, low amounts of fruit, the berries, the low glycemic fruits, and maybe some brown rice, but it's the grains in between. And then some people can't handle the grains. So you go from the straight sugar, but no matter what you do, if you do one at a time, you're going to go through withdrawals each time. Sometimes it's better to taper down just a little bit and then go cold turkey on all three or whatever you're looking to quit, because you're always going to go through the withdrawals no matter what. I mean, there's going to be some withdrawals or some readjustment. So you need to, personally, I've never seen anyone succeed who insists on using artificial sweeteners because it lights the brain chemicals up and it makes you want the real stuff. So, and that's over a decade of doing this. So.
No, you're so experienced. You've worked with so many people. That's why I'm just really enjoying talking to you.
People really get mad at me about the coffee. They get upset with me on the coffee or the caffeine because. I once worked with an Olympic athlete. This woman could, in the early days, no, it was only about 3 years ago. And it feels like the early days. No. And she couldn't get off the sugar, but she was a chiropractor now and she had a couple kids, but she placed in the Olympics. She could do anything with her body. And they started her drinking coffee when she was 10 years old. The coaches did. And so when she tried to quit the sugar, she just couldn't. They were too tied together because she obviously didn't drink coffee without sugar when she was 10 years old. And so what happened was they were just married together in that neural pathway. And so that trying to drink black coffee kept her on the sugar. Plus, coffee jacks your insulin too. So, I mean, it's a part of my protocol, personally, working with folks. A lot of people have different ideas about it, but I've seen it work. If you're really serious and you wanted to get this done, that's just part of it.
Yeah. One last thing I just wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned it, the constant glucose monitor. Have you found that? I've actually worn it because I wanted to see myself, and it's quite amazing. Have you found that very helpful for people? as they?
I'm just getting started knowing about it. They've got two CGM companies on the summit talking about it. Their nutritionist and their doctor on one, and nutritionist on the other. They're their co-founders as well, and they. I believe it's the future of behavior modification. What's happening now, just so the folks know, in Canada and Great Britain, you do not need a prescription for this device. And what it does is test your glucose on a consistent basis, no finger pricks, whatever. You always know. So when you eat something, you can see it go out of range. You can literally pick up your phone and look at your phone and watch your blood sugar, and that your glucose, right? And that when people can know, like they can get away with, oh, I can have a little, I don't really know. You can't see it. But when you can see it, that kind of feedback, and Google and Amazon are working on a non-invasive one that would go right on your wrist, like a Fitbit. And when that happens, so they don't have to prick you. See, the continuous glucose monitor sticks a little needle in you and then it withdraws it, but there's a patch there that stays on. Some people a little shy of that, but the biohackers out there, they love it. And there's, both these companies that are on the summit talk about the behavior modification, the prevention, not necessarily managing diabetes 1 or 2. This is about prevention and behavioral change. So yeah, I think it's going to be huge.
It's interesting because I actually did it because of my husband, because he was in the pre-diabetic range. It was okay. But, we sort of saw blood sugar rising a little bit, even me. And I thought, wow, how could that be? So we both wore them for 2 weeks. And I was really doing it as I figured it would, if we both do it. But whoa, what I saw was that mine wasn't as good as I thought. And you know what was the reason?
What?
Fruit.
Yes.
I have an incredibly healthy diet, but I was eating a lot of fruit, like a lot of berries. I was eating way too much fruit. And so what I found when I cut the fruit back, and I also increased the fiber, so I'd increase the nuts when I have chia seeds with the fruit, completely changed everything. So I thought this device that, is easy. You didn't feel it. You put it on.
You don't feel it. Yeah.
2 weeks. It was amazing. But it was amazing for me. First of all, I wasn't trying to lose weight. I lost weight those 2 weeks because I saw what I was doing. And after the 2 weeks, I didn't need it anymore. I knew exactly what to modify because you get that information right away. I'm
so happy you brought this up, and you actually opened the door here, so I've got to jump through it. A lot of people try to substitute fruit during the process, and a lot of fruit will continue to keep the fructose level high and the glucose level high and draw them back to the processed sugar. And so, but it is what we call a borderline food or a bridge food, a food where you can, if you do a little bit, it'll take the edge off at night. You can get some sleep during your withdrawals or whatever, eat a little bit of berries, but overdoing it is going to just keep you on the stuff in the early days. And you were a long time off it. So
right.
The same thing happened to me. I was 25 years into sugar freedom, and I was eating a lot of fruit too. And when I stopped eating fruit, I used to have adult acne. I used to have, my hair was falling out. I had my gums bled all the time. All that stuff went away, just like that, gone. And so I know that fruit is that much glucose, that much fructose is inflammatory, just like the regular stuff,
Yeah, I was thinking, because I really eat so clean. I have such a great diet. And I was thinking, why is my blood sugar? It wasn't bad. It wasn't, but I thought, why is it hiking up? Like, what is it? And then I saw on this device, but interesting when you balance it out with the fiber, I cut back the fruit a lot, and probably more like our ancestors, had a little bit, which is fine. And that's what I do now, but it's so very interesting. Oh my goodness. Do anything else before we end? You've been giving us such great information that you want to share with everybody. Any last things, everyone who's listening and thinking, oh my gosh.
A couple things, if they want to grab my free book, they can grab it at sugaraddiction.com. It's just, it's on Amazon, but you can get it free at the site. And the main thing I like to tell folks is is like, can they do this? They're always curious about changing, growing, whatever. And what I find in the pattern recognition of the success stories is these people are pioneers a little bit. They're pioneers in school or athletics or their job. They're they feel a little different than their family because they're willing to go out. They don't care about what the family says. They don't care about what their schoolmates say or their their workmates. And they're willing to do the research, go out there and change a behavior, change a habit, And those are the folks that I think they call them early adopters in the tech world. And those are the folks that are needed to move this movement forward. And a lot of they call them biohackers, or the people that are into health and wellness, and they're willing to take these crazy nutraceuticals or whatever, and they buy Fitbits. Let them put a CGM on for a while, or let them just quit sugar for 30, 60, 90 days and see what happens. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, well, I love that, because I'm right in there with you. I just think this is such an important topic. And for everybody listening with their bones, this is essential. Everyone's so worried about so many things, but this is such a big piece of it. So
for sure.
And your happiness, right? As I said, I teach happiness.
Oh, we didn't even get it. You teach happiness. We didn't even get into that.
I know. So, yeah.
My personal belief, and I've seen it so many times. Oh, we forgot to think one change is I've got a bunch of people that got off SSRIs, that got off depression medications after they quit the sugar with their doctor's help and their doctor's orders. It wasn't us. And we didn't they decided they didn't feel like they needed it anymore. And this is absolutely affecting the mood in your brain, in your body. This is I think it personally, the most important thing. I swear to God. Yeah, for sure. The mental health.
Great. Yeah. I mean, you can't really be super happy when you're living and addicted to sugar. So I think it's absolutely essential. Well, I'm really excited because I'm going to come to the summit. I can't get over the quality of the speakers you have. And yes, next year I'm in there. I'll talk about bones.
People
and
need
sugar.
the bone and sugar for sure. I cannot, I knew that, like I said, one speaker mentioned it, the magnesium pull out of the bones.
Yes.
And this is, I'm going to tell you another one. Where did I hear this? I think it was on the summit too. So, it was the dentist from the UK. He said they uncovered, they're building a subway or something. They uncovered a cache of bones that was 400 years old or 500 years old, right? And they compared them to today's bones. The older bones were heavier. Heavier bones and in better shape than the bones of people today.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they hadn't got the sugar. Yeah.
So interesting. Well, thank you so much. And I will have the links to the summit. And so again, it starts today. So I'm so glad that it was just recently, and I said, no, you have to come on and give people the information before the summit starts. So I'm really excited. Nice. And do take advantage of it, because I think it's going to be amazing, as well as your other things. So thank you. And I look forward to staying in touch. And thanks again for coming.
All right. Talk to you soon. Take care now.
I hope you've enjoyed my interview with Mike and now have a better understanding of sugar and why we want to rid ourselves of this addictive substance that can have so many detrimental effects to our bones and overall health. The good news is there's so much that we can do. And the first thing is Mike has this amazing online summit that's starting today. So I'll have all the information in the show notes. And I hope you take advantage of this. And if not, he has other great information to help you really live the healthiest life. So bye for now, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.